Welcome back to Breaking Spines, the miscellaneous book review show for reviewing miscellaneous books. This is our second episode, and I'm already breaking the rules by talking about a book I have read before, Redwall by Brian Jacques. Published in 1986 by Hutchinson, the book takes place in a post-human Middle Ages, where various smaller animals have formed human-like societies. A small army of rats and various creeping rodents, led by the vile, one-eyed rat Clooney the Scourge, attempts to invade Redwall Abbey, a self-contained safe haven for mice, squirrels, badgers, rabbits, and other cleaner creatures. The Abbey is able to defend itself to a standstill, but are unable to drive Clooney's forces away. That's when a clumsy young mouse named Matthias takes it upon himself to search for the sword of Martin, the warrior mouse who founded Redwall Abbey ages ago. While the rest of the Abbey tries to survive Clooney's onslaughts, Matthias picks up a trail of clues that have him discovering secret passages within the Abbey, outwitting a clan of warrior sparrows, making peace with an owl and a cat, and finally confronting the dreaded snake Asmodeus. With a bunch of new allies and Martin's sword in hand, it's all or nothing as Matthias leads one final charge against Clooney. Now, I originally read Redwall all the way back in 5th grade, and I remember liking it. It was kind of a big thing for my friends in elementary and middle school. But by the time a copy of it fell in my lap earlier this year, I realized that I had forgotten everything about it. I had never bothered to read the 21 other books in the series, nor had I watched the animated series from 1999. Redwall just never found a place in my life like some other books did. Rediscovering and rereading the book, I quickly realized why. Because Redwall is one of the most boring, unambitious books I've read in a long time. The problem here is twofold. First, the plot here really feels stock standard for a Middle Ages light fantasy adventure, or plots I guess, as the Redwall Abbey defends itself from Clooney the Scourge storyline and the Matthias tracks down Martin's sword storyline feel very separated from each other. The Abbey plot is a fairly basic rinse-and-repeat siege story, with Clooney's forces coming up with a new plot to get past the Abbey walls. The plot is recognized by the heroes and foiled. That's okay as long as it's interesting, but the stakes are surprisingly low. The Abbey is entirely self-contained with seemingly endless supplies of food and water, and pretty much any time there isn't a battle going on, the good guys are throwing a party. Only 2 named good guys die from this conflict. All the other fatalities are red shirts. And one of those 2 named deaths was accidental and didn't really have anything to do with Clooney's attacks. It just feels so tame. And it's not because this is a kid's book and they need to tone down the violence, because Clooney's forces get fucked up. We got evil rats and ferrets getting stabbed, crushed, falling from great heights, set on fire, poisoned, eaten alive, and my favorite, several bad guys getting their flesh melted off with boiling water. It's seriously Game of Thrones levels of violence here, just only aimed at the bad guys. As for Matthias' story, it's very much a hero's journey Joseph Campbell deal, and you already know how much I don't care for that stuff, and I already know how much you don't care that I don't care for that stuff. It's more interesting than the Abbey storyline. At least Matthias goes to different places and meets characters outside of the Abbey, but Matthias himself just sucks. He's introduced as this young, wet-behind-the-ears, clumsy little orphan mouse, and then he stops being that and just does other things. He's good at riddles, which, okay, he has a hidden talent, don't mind that. But then he can magically speak to sparrows. He didn't learn the sparrow language at any point of his life, he just knows it. All of this concludes with Matthias suddenly being a master swordsman, despite the fact that Martin's sword is the only sword in the entire area, maybe in the entire world. It's like he's leveling up in an RPG. Matthias killed 12 enemies and gained 600 experience points. He now gets the sword dash attack. He doesn't have a character arc. He trades in his character traits for others when it's needed in the situation. And, of course, he's the prophesized chosen one, as you do. So repetitive set pieces, no sense of danger, a dull main character who can do whatever the story needs him to do. But hey, at least the setting should be interesting. It's different animals forming cultures in a post-human society. There's got to be something to chew on there. But alas, that's fold number 2, because Brian Jacques didn't seem the least bit interested in exploring the idea his setting raises. The fact that these characters are not human doesn't really seem to matter that much. There's not much that's done here that couldn't have been done if these characters were human. No account is made of their animal biology. Two of the good guys are a badger named Constance and a hedgehog named Ambrosia, and they get along just fine despite the fact that badgers are one of the main predators of hedgehogs. They get along because they're of noble species, along with mice, moles, squirrels, and rabbits. Not like those common vermin like rats, weasels, and ferrets. Fuck those evil bastards. Yeah, instead of finding conflict from the natural ecosystem of their races, conflict is derived by some species just being inherently evil. Not an uncommon thing in fantasy literature, sure. There sure weren't a lot of sympathetic orcs in Lord of the Rings, but the closer you bring this to the real world, the more unsettling and maybe racist it is. The idea that of a genetic predisposition towards one's morality is lazy storytelling on its own, but it even actively hurts the story in some places. One of my favorite early characters in the book was Sella the Fox, a mystical healer who is hired by Clooney to heal his injuries. This turns out to be a front, however, and Sella's real motivation is to spy on Clooney and his forces, learn their plans, and sell the information to those in the Abbey. Hey, cool! A third party in this conflict. Someone motivated by personal profit instead of falling on one side of the species divide. Someone more chaotic neutral than good or evil. But it turns out foxes fall on the vermin side of things. So just as Sella's plot gets underway, she's just straight up attacked by the good guys for pretty much no good reason, then is killed by the bad guys for trying to get with the good guys. There's like 1,000 interesting story possibilities with this character, but we can't do them because Brian Jacques put foxes on the shit list. Which is weird. Foxes are awesome. What are you doing? There's 22 books in this series. Please tell me at some point they lampshade this noble vermin divide. It's just, ugh. The animals are also really weirdly inconsistent. Like, okay, some animals are the sizes they are in real life. Animals like horses, snakes, owls, cats, they loom over the rodent characters. But then some of them, like foxes and badgers, have magically shrunk to rat size and have grown opposable thumbs. I never know how big certain characters are in relation to each other, and that's troubling if these characters are fighting each other. I can't really visualize the combat going on, and I don't know, this entire setting seems like wasted potential. It doesn't help that I recently got into the Guardians of Ga'Hoole series, which is also a story of young animals having quests and fighting evil in a post-human world, but actually uses owl biology and ecosystems to develop some interesting cultures and derived conflict naturally for them, and it rocks. Redwall might as well be the Looney Tunes acting out the Decameron in comparison. Would I recommend Brian Jacques' Redwall? I think I can see the appeal it might have had for younger kids of my generation, but readers today are much more spoiled for choice, and there are books out there that do this same thing a lot better. Maybe even future books in the series. I haven't read them, so I can't say. This book is unimaginative and full of empty calories, and I just can't recommend it outside of well, if there's nothing better to read, I suppose. There's usually something better to read. Thank you for watching, and keep on breaking spines.